What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to go over two news stories today, both of which not the greatest in the world. So I thought, well, let's combine them and let's do them together in this video. So let's first talk about Avowed, and it's another frame rate issue kind of thing. Look, for me, at least right now, it's more about how they said it versus that it's actually happening. I guess it's also more of like just the carryover stuff of what's been said with the Xbox console. Look, a game 60 frames, 30 frames. I want it to run well. I want it to run as best as it possibly can. I prefer the higher frame rate, right? You also have the complications of, well, it's probably going to be 60 frames, if not more, on PC. Then you have the Series S conversations. There's so much that kind of goes into it, right? But from my perspective, it's as simple as have the game run well, but also it's just how they say it. So, the article that's going around, they say it's a first-person single-player game. You don't necessarily need that 60 frames. Again, they talk about it being 30 frames instead. That's the quote. That's the line. And I just don't think that's a really good way of saying it at all, considering, and I think what I just said, about the PC, because it's like, well, it's a single player, everything you just said, but like on PC, it won't be 30 frames, at least you imagine. Also, why not? I guess you're saying, well, it doesn't have to be. Well, couldn't it be though? And then again, you bring in the Series S conversations. I got to be real. I really believe the Series S holds it back. And it started as a conspiracy. I never actually bought into it for the first year or two, but just as time has gone on and more and more and more, and the quotes that people always pull out from the higher Xbox executives, right? Where it's they had such high potential and promises for the Xbox Series X, at least the X, right? Where this is the most powerful console on the face of the earth, and this thing can do 60 frames is the minimum, right? We should be in 4K every game, things like that. And then it's it can't even do it. So again, for me, I'm not there counting the frames. I don't know. If the game runs poorly, that influences my opinion of it. But having I can say this confidently, 30 frames versus 60 when I'm playing it, if it runs fine. I mean, I don't do point systems anyway when I talk about games or review games, but I wouldn't dock anything for it being 60-30, okay? I think it's just more of the baggage that comes along with it, where it's it's not going to be 30 on PC. Is the Series S the reason why, or are you just not trying to get to 60 on the Series X, which should definitely be able to do it? Are we not giving enough time to developers in the first place, right? There's all of these different kind of conversations and past promises that aren't being delivered upon. That's what makes these things look bad, not necessarily the act on its own. Okay, so funny enough, I didn't actually think this through until I started recording it. We have the one negative story for Xbox with Avowed. Now we have the one negative story with PlayStation with Concord. It's funny how balance is out there in the world. So this isn't necessarily what they've done, although I guess you could say that. Concord is out. It's been out for 3 days, and I was wondering, well, I haven't seen anything, and that's kind of part of this conversation, right? Haven't seen anything. People have technically, I guess, been playing this game for 3 days. Where's anything on it, literally at all? It came out today on Steam. Now, Steam, you can look at the numbers, right? So PlayStation, you obviously don't know. Steam has been something that you can kind of track the low volume of Concord from the beginning, right? When they did those play tests or the betas, whatever you want to call them, whatever they called them. It's not indicative of the entire thing because you can't track PlayStation, players there. But I will say this. Considering we know about Helldivers, right? I think this is a good comparison because they're not the same game, but Helldivers thrived on PC. And it probably, even at its peak, it had at least a 60-40 thing going on with PlayStation, right? 60% PC, 40% PlayStation, maybe bigger, maybe 70-30, right? So it's important to keep that in mind because you could say, well, it's not everybody, right? Steam is just one part of it. There's also PlayStation. Yeah, but a game like Helldivers, a game like Concord, you expect more people on PC. Honestly, if you released The Last of Us multiplayer, right, or you released any of these multiplayer games that they've canceled, you would expect the PC one to be the steady as she goes one, right? You'd want the PC one to kind of lead the charge because PlayStation, you want it to do good there too, but you just, I think, expect PC to do better. So keeping all that in mind, we look at the charts, and it's actually a good timing think, of when I'm recording this. It peaked at 697 players as of 29 minutes ago from when I'm recording it. Right now, it's at 657. The reviews themselves aren't terrible. It's a 78, which is, I think, considered literally positive. But I mean, it's got what, 200 reviews, right? So 200 reviews, 700 or so people playing it. It's not there. It's non-existent. And I think it's interesting because you can have games that kind of blow up for like the quote-unquote wrong reasons, right? Like Concord's had a few things about it, like people have complained about like the character looks and stuff like that. And I mean, in total respect, I mean, you can have whatever opinion on Concord you want. Truly, I do not care. If you're having fun with it, you're playing it right now, that's awesome. If you hate it, if you don't care about it, that's totally cool, okay? But it's interesting to me because like this isn't a game that I think thrives off of, or I'm not even thrives, like any kind of negativity doesn't even really impact this game, right? I guess the way it impacts this game is, maybe you could say the negativity on this game is just no one cares. That's the biggest weakness with the game, is it's not even bad. It's not even bad in the way that it can make like internet history, right? Where maybe it pops off and people are talking about on Twitter for how bad it is, or people are mad about like a specific thing so violently that actually maybe leads to people playing it for a little bit. Like, I mean, Suicide Squad has the opinions of people, right? Suicide Squad at launch did pretty okay. I mean, they were trying to compare it to Hogwarts Legacy, like they wanted it to do those numbers, but the sales initially were not terrible. Like they were okay, and it just, I don't think anybody's bought it, kind of since that first month. You can look at the sales chart of where that game landed on like the top 10, top 15, and I think it was like top 8. I think it was number 8 when it came out, and it's, since then it's fallen off. So people kind of bought it, even though, there was the negative kind of response. I think almost out of curiosity. Concord doesn't even, that's the word. Concord doesn't even have curiosity. It doesn't even have people's interest to check it out to see if it's worth, it being good, or even just test it out because it's so bad. Seems like it's a fine game. And I mean, I said that. I played the first beta, which they opened up, remember, to everybody. The game's fine. Now, I don't really play those type of games. Like, so take my opinion, I guess, with a grain of salt. Like, you don't have to go based off me at all. But I thought it was okay. Like, I don't think it was great. I didn't think it was bad. I actually had fun in the time that I played it. But, for $40 for a game that's not up my alley, it doesn't reinvent the wheel. It does nothing to differentiate it from anything else. And I guess, it has weekly cutscenes or whatever. But, nobody cares about, when I say nobody, I mean, like, more than a couple thousand. Again, that's kind of sad, honestly, a little bit sad. It actually makes it more sad when you see, I don't know if you guys saw, there were interviews going on the last couple days. I think like an art director or one of the leads there talked about, number one, the game's been in the works in some way for 8 years. I have no idea how it takes 8 years to make this type of game, but yet again, Suicide Squad, I think, took 9 years. So I don't know why it's taking a game like Concord and Suicide Squad a decade to make, but we need to cut that out immediately. And also, they've talked about that they're ready to support the game for years to come, was the quote, right? That actually hurts. That actually hurts reading it, because like, if they make a fine game, cool. If they make a good game, like, I want them to not get fired. Like, I want people to be able to support themselves, live, have food and stuff like that. I'm not asking for any of them to get fired, but it's like, I don't think you're going to get years. Boiled down, I don't think you're going to be able to support Concord for like 3 years. I think you're going to be able to support, I laugh. It is kind of like harsh, so I guess, maybe I shouldn't laugh about it, but I really don't see Concord lasting more than like a month. And that's not even a joke. You have less than 1,000 people playing it right now. This is the peak. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow is a Saturday, weekend, right? Maybe you hit 1,000. But you go into next week. Week after, Astrobot is the week after, right? It's not on PC, I guess, but there's other games that are coming. So it's like, if Concord doesn't do anything now, what makes you think it's going to do anything in 3 weeks when there's 15 games out? What makes you think it's going to do something in October, November? It should have been free to play. Why it's $40 makes no sense to me. I guess they need to make money, so I understand that part, of the equation, but I think this game needed to be free to play. At the same time, though, I think even it being free to play wouldn't work. I think it would get a boost, but I don't think it would last long term. You've seen a game like Multiverses that's free to play. That game's not actually, it blew up 3 years ago or whenever, but actually nowadays it's not doing all that great. So it's like, I don't know, certain games for whatever reason just don't hit, I guess. And Concord is definitely one of those games where, again, it's not great. It's not terrible. There's sometimes discussions on it. It's mainly like the character looks and things like that. But beyond that, nobody's talking about it. And I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying you should. I don't care. But I mean, it seems like nobody cares, and that's kind of the issue, with this game. So there you go. Again, a negative for Xbox, negative for PlayStation on the same day, on the same weekend. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.